Get your stinking rat out. It's late night large.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Lockdown Large Extra Time. Hopefully you know the score by now. So we give ourselves a 20-minute time limit to talk about something in the world of usually Premier League football. And so this week's theme, decided, will be, is Fat Sam a busted flush? So we're going to start the timer, 20 minutes, get that going, and away we go. Right, so is Fat Sam a busted flush? We're talking about Sam Allardici, of course. And yes, that was a toilet joke, because I remember reading once, one of the things that made me laugh is they described Sam Allardici as one person you'd never want to use the toilet after. So I thought that was I thought that was an interesting way of describing him.
Who described him as that? Where have you seen this?
I think it was some kind of football website. It might have been Football 365. So you know that's not my joke. You know, I'm passing that off. Anyway, Sam Allardici, he's a man who divides opinions. Mike, some people might think we're a bit harsh describing him as Fat Sam, but you know, he's always described.
I think Big Sam is the socially accepted term.
Preferred. See, this is one problem I have as well with him is why do some people get these silly nicknames and some people no? So
you have a problem with him for that?
Yes.
For being given a nickname?
Yes. I have a problem with commentators, instead of referring to him as Allardici, the way that you would refer to Rodgers or Hodgson, they continue to refer to him as Big Sam, as if he's like their best mate. And
he is.
Yeah,
he probably is.
He probably
he's
is.
Everyone's best mate.
Well, we know what kind of best mates he hangs around with. Anyway, we're not going to let that bleed into it. So,
are you telling me that you wouldn't like to go for a beer with Big Sam?
Well, I mean,
I'd fucking love it.
I'm sure he'd be a good laugh on a night out, cracking out.
There you go then.
Cracking out his pint glass with some prosecco or whatever he puts in it. But yeah, so Mike, people get given nicknames for all kinds of reasons. I think Big Sam is pretty obvious. It's not just that he's actually quite obese, but his head's like Easter Island statue. So
he's a big guy. He's a big guy.
He's big everywhere. Absolutely big everywhere.
He's just a big burly man, isn't he? He's got like probably, I don't know what he weighs, but he's like 6'3". Big guy. That's all it means.
He's a big boy, and
he's a big boy.
Does it make you laugh at all that they often draw attention to it? Again, commentators. He always has his assistant is always these days it's Sammy Lee. So commentators always refer to it as Big Sam, Little Sam, as if they're like the world's lamest comedy duo. And
again, would you not pay to see it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure their capers would be well worth tuning into.
Yeah, you're ripping on them, but
oh, I know. I mean, I was a bit harsh to Allardici saying that he had a head like an Easter Island statue, but so I will insult little Sammy as well, because Sammy Lee's face always reminds me of like a cross between a Pez dispenser and have you ever seen the original Disney version of Alice in Wonderland, Tweedledum and Tweedledee? Where like they open their mouth and it takes up half their head. Yeah, that's what I think of when I think of Sammy Lee. So yeah, everyone's favorite comedy double act, but let's be fair to Allardici. He's obviously paid the big bucks and he's got a reputation for good reason. We know the one thing that he's never done or never had done to him. Do you think he? Okay, let's give me a quick first one, Mike. Are you a fan of Allardici? Do you like his? Do you think he's a good character to have in the Premier League?
I think he's a great character to have in the Premier League. I think he's a great. I think the Premier League would be worse off without him. Oh. I think he's a great character to have. Am I a fan of him personally as a person? I mean, why not? Brilliant. Yeah, sure. Like when I said I'd love to go and have a beer with him, I fucking meant it. That'd be brilliant.
Is this because you see a little bit of yourself in him, do you, Mike?
Yeah, we're like that really.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but no. Do I like him as a football manager? Do I like to watch his teams play football? Less so.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
It tells a story that you kind of use that as the first way of describing your relationship with watching his teams. I think that might be something we return to. So let's just move on a little bit. So
all right, that's great.
the way we frame this question is obviously, first of all, we need to quickly go about what we admire about Allardyce. So clearly, Allardyce, he burst into the Premier League, but around about the end of the last millennium, start of this millennium, with Bolton getting them promoted. And it's fair to say, Mike, you can make a good case to be, if not the one of Bolton's finest managers, in the sense that he really, other than back in the Stan Mortensen days, he turned them into a brand where people were like, "Whoa, what's going on at Bolton?" Because he built slowly and steadily, and Bolton had been in the Premier League once or twice before and been immediately relegated. He brought them up, he kept them up. Nobody thought much of it until he starts bringing in these stellar names like out of left field. Suddenly we were dealing with JJ Okocha, Yuri Djorkaeff, Ivan Campo, Fernando Hierro, Nicolas Anelka. I mean, were you a fan of his Bolton side back in the day?
I fucking loved it. I loved it. Okay. I mean, I'm overselling that a little bit, but I mean, the names you mentioned there that he's brought in, some of them, introduced into the Premier League, to English football, great. Like, I thought. Put it this way. If I had a team, if I was an owner of a club, right? So I own a championship club, right? And I gained promotion, but my manager, you'd have to stick with him, wouldn't you? But he's fucked off. He's taking another job somewhere, some big team, wanker, right? And then it's like, well, shit, what do we do now? We haven't got a manager. Straight on the phone. Sam. Fast Sam. What are you saying? Come and work for me. But yeah, I get him straight on there because what he gets criticised, doesn't he? People do forget like some of the things he managed to do with Bolton. I say managed to do some of the talent he introduced to us.
I mean, he did do okay in terms of. I mean, he finished. I think did he finish fifth one season? He definitely got into Europe and he reached the League Cup final as well. So yeah.
Okay, so I mean, when you're talking Bolton standards, then yeah, actually, that's fucking good. So yeah, I mean, okay, what he achieved, the players he introduced us to, introduced to the Premier League, etc., etc. What's going on here?
Oh, we haven't got more technical difficulties, have we?
We have got technical difficulties. I have technical difficulties anyway.
I can still hear you, Mike. Maybe we can just.
Okay. Anyway, so Sam, yeah, great guy. I'd have him on my team. He gets criticised a little bit for.
What is it? Hang on, Mike. What does he get criticised for? Let's introduce it. What's the main criticism of Allardyce?
I think one of the things he gets criticised for is his style of play. Kind of is. People accuse him of being long ball. Now, is that unjustified? No, but what it is, and no one can take this away from the man. What it is successful. He works with what he's got, and he's one of the best managers around, I think, for actually doing that, taking stock of what you've got, and then going, do you know what? It might not be pretty, people might not like it, but this is what we're going to have to do if we want to be successful or we want to stay up or whatever. And more often than not, he gets the job done, doesn't he? So, well, he doesn't get relegated. But
he doesn't get relegated yet, and that's obviously what we go on to. Okay, so we talk about Bolton. So we've given the good side. He brought all these amazing Galacticos that you could never expected Bolton to have attracted. I know, and some of we're not just talking like show ponies. Like, oh look, there's Fernando Hierro and even Campo. There were players that actually were really inventive flair players. Jorkaeff and Okocha. And then, of course, he even brought in players that I really wanted to see in the Premier League that were huge flops, like Mario Jardel. But he generally, in terms of his transfers, he, like you say, he absolutely milked the transfer market. 8-9 times out of 10, he would get genuine value for money at Bolton. Again, in the plus column, you've got yes, as he never fails to tell us, because if there's another thing that's big about Sam, in fact, you'd argue if there's one thing fatter than Fat Sam, it's his ego, because he really does love himself. And he definitely talks up the fact that, he feels like he was the Arsene Wenger of, what is it, the player statistics or something, the sort of readouts of player performance or something, I don't know. It's some kind of generated statistics for players that he claims that he was like a pioneer in. So if we give it that in the credit column, and then we have the negative column, which you've alluded to, which is, I mean, you can dress it up any way you want, but other than the odd flair player, Allardice's meat and potatoes was long ball football, percentage football, launch it up in the mixer, get the big man to knock it down, in and around the second ball, set pieces. But that doesn't tell the whole story, because let's not forget that not only was Allardice quite reliant and still quite reliant on the long ball, he did also employ very dubious tactics of gamesmanship. So I'm thinking particularly Kevin Nolan treading on the goalkeeper's toes, blocking goalkeepers at corners, blocking goalkeepers at free kicks, pulling people off walls.
It's effective.
Yeah, no, you're right. I'm not saying it's all negative. What I'm saying is, I think the problem with Fat Sam is he sees it in terms of results, only results. He sees his job as, am I churning out results? And you could argue that's why he gets so many jobs, and that's why he's worked with more Premier League clubs than any other manager. Give him a round of applause. Well done, Fat Sam. That's a record you hold. There's a record you hold that I think personally you're about to lose, which is never having been relegated, no matter how dire a situation you're in. Fair play. But the problem is, if you side entirely with the results, who doesn't like that? The fans. Who is going to pay their hard-earned money to turn up every week? Bolton, I take it that Bolton is a bit of an outlier, and this is why we talk about Bolton almost as if it was a completely different era. Because almost every other team that Allardice has managed, generally the fans have turned against him, because you do not want to spend a significant proportion of your weekly wage, potentially when you incorporate travel and everything, watching a team that's looking to grind out goals from corners and otherwise are just camped on the edge of their own box, launching long balls and, percentage football.
Yeah, but the alternative for most of the teams that he's managed, from where most of these fans have turned against him, are, well, you can do that, which is going to get you some results, and it may not be pretty, but it will be effective, or as effective as your squad of players can be, or you can just get relegated. What would you rather?
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, he obviously got seen as a sure thing. I mean, he left Bolton with his head held high. His stock was very high. His giant head. I mean, it's fair to say he made an absolute pig's ear out of his first big club chance, which was Newcastle. I don't think anyone would argue he made a success of that. I mean, for fuck's sake, he was manager of the only team that lost to that all-time worst Derby County team. So let's not forget that. That's one thing he doesn't want you to remember.
Yeah, okay.
I have to admit, Mike, I felt the one time I genuinely felt sympathy for Fat Sam was losing the job at Blackburn. I actually thought he was doing a relatively steady job at Blackburn, and I think he could have repeated some kind of Bolton-esque dynasty at Blackburn, because that seems to be his level, doesn't it? Northwest club, flirting between the divisions, he establishes them and maybe gets them on the fringes of European places with quite pragmatic football. But he might bring in one or two international stars along the way, so that's kind of what you get for it. So to me, Blackburn and Bolton were decent jobs. And then obviously we go from there where he was unfairly sacked. I mean, I can't even remember who else he was managing. I might have to check Wikipedia to remember. So he was, Blackburn. Oh, then he went to West Ham. And to be fair, he got them promoted, but the West Ham fans pretty much immediately hated him when they were in the Premier League. There was obviously the joke about him, just like Kevin Nolan being like his son-in-law that he just brought everywhere with him. And Kevin Nolan became a bit of a punchline, didn't he? Because it was always like, oh yeah, Fat Sam, plan is knock it long to Kevin Davis or insert target man, and Kevin Nolan gets in and around them. That's the plan. And to be fair, it generally was, and he got some serious yards out of it. He fell out of favour big time at West Ham. Went to Sunderland. I don't know about you. I thought he did an exceptional job at Sunderland. Did really, really well. They were always on the brink of being relegated. Got them completely turned around, really organised, because that's obviously what he does. He organises defences. And then he gets the England job.
Yes.
Greatest England manager, 100% record, no goals conceded. Sacked outrageously because he didn't necessarily do anything wrong, but came across as a bit of a crooked bastard in an interview, suggesting you get around certain regulations, obviously necking a pint of wine. It's not the first time, Mike, I know we shouldn't really bring this up, but it's not the first time he's been accused of corruption either, because I don't know if you remember that there was undercover investigations about his son. He was implicated in the BBC Panorama documentary for taking bribes. Now, I don't think anything was proved there, so just to stop us being sued or whatever, just allegations. But it has kind of haunted him a little bit.
Look, I think. I mean, what was your take then on? You mentioned unfairly, so I assume you think he shouldn't have been sacked from England.
I have to admit, I was glad he was sacked for England because I didn't want his style in the England national team. But looking back, it was relatively harsh. He didn't actually say anything that was technically illegal. He could have apologized and said that he was really stupid and that he kind of shamed his employers and maybe taken a financial hit or something. I thought it was pretty harsh for him to lose the job entirely.
I wouldn't have fired him, and actually, I didn't necessarily want him to lose his job though. I wouldn't have minded of just seeing what happened. As England manager, I don't. It's different national kind of managing national teams to club teams for obvious reasons, but. And people can go, well, actually this then more is actually about your style of play, and again, but would he have done that with an England level squad of players? I don't know. I would have liked to see, because he's a good man manager.
Yeah.
So
it would have been interesting.
England need that. With all the, especially towards the modern era, with all the egos around and stuff like that, I wish we could have just seen what would happen.
Yeah,
it might be shit and whatever, but
it could have been another Graham Taylor. But then again, at that point, we were quite desperate. I mean, luckily it worked out in the end for us because Gareth Southgate did a brilliant job at the World Cup. So, okay, we're running out of time, Mike. So he obviously he then kept Crystal Palace up, didn't he? Anyway, bottom line is Everton, he kept up his record. He always kept teams safe. Has he taken on a job too far now? Just to give you a quick statistic, for his first 10 games, he now holds the joint record for most goals conceded in first 10 games. 28 goals he's conceded in 10 games.
That's
now,
not right, Sam.
Quickly, first of all, that's his reason for existing is tightening up defences. So when we see that kind of statistic, and then we see people thought it's a bit harsh that Slaven Bilic got sacked. Is this a job too far? Is this where Sam basically has to retire in disgrace?
I mean, retire in disgrace is a bit harsh, isn't it?
I meant in disgrace, as in he no longer has that "I never get relegated" thing. Fireman Sam is out the window.
I mean, if you can, disgrace by being proven human, like, I don't know, like,
you could argue his brand of football is disgraceful, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, look, it doesn't look good, does it? It doesn't look good. But I'll tell you what, if anyone could prevent West Brom from going down this season, who would you bet on?
I see what you mean. One more thing I'll get in, just as a little dig at the end as well, is I remember Allardici was very vocal about supporting Brexit, and then recently he's been complaining about the lack of playing options available to him because of restrictions after Brexit.
Oh, Sam.
Okay, quick yes or no. Is he going to save West Brom? Are they going to have an even greater escape than they did under Brian Robson back in the mid-noughties?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I'm going out and saying it. I'm on a fucking limb.
You put money on the bookie. You go down the bookie.
Oh, I didn't say I put money on it, did I?
Okay, fair enough. So
yes, I'm going to say yes because that's the ballsy move. So
right, time up. Okay, so Mike says he's not a busted flush. I'm going to have to take the opposite view to Mike. I literally, they're all cut off. So the three teams at the bottom are completely cut off. At the moment, the only team that looks like getting out of it is Sheffield United. If what I will say before we go, Fat Sam, if he pulls this off, this is his greatest achievement, and he deserves to be knighted with the little crown on top of the Premier League Lions. So fair play, Fat Sam. We got mixed opinions, but we generally think
he's going to go on a big run. He's going to win all the rest of his games. That's what we think.
Yeah, and then he's going to.
Let's be honest, West Brom are fucked, but we love Fat Sam. But we love Fat Sam. So
he's a character, isn't he? So hopefully he'll be necking a keg of wine after the season, having kept them up against all the odds, and then Sammy Lee will do whatever Sammy Lee does. Like unhinge his jaw and swallow the keg. Right, that's it for Lockdown Large Extra Time, and we will see you this time next time.